All right, well, here we are. I don't think we can hear Mr. Shirk tonight, so Mr. Horst is taking the reins as chair for the evening. Mr. Horst, if you would like to call the meeting to order.
All right, I'll be happy to do that. Yeah, just ask for extra patience tonight as I give this a go and try to make this go as smoothly as possible, so I'd appreciate that. But with that, we can go ahead and start off with public comment. If we have anyone, just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll get to you.
And we have not had anything. We have not had anything beforehand, and I am not seeing anything in the chat. But let me just check the attendee window one more time. And any no, sir, I do not see any.
Okay. All right, well, hearing none, we can go ahead and move on to the next item, being members' interest. So if there's anyone out there that has something that they want to bring to our attention, now would be the time.
By the way, it seems like I now have audio. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome, Jim.
Oh, thank you. It took a while, but I'm on Mexican time, so thank you.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so I don't know if you could hear us, but we're on members' interests.
Yeah, I just heard that. I finally got this thing working.
All right, Wade, can I go?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so just a few things. Bike Walk Tampa Bay wrapped up their Sprint for Safety at the end of October. Collectively, we walked or ran over 880 miles. If you participated and you requested a medal, those will be sent to you. We are currently in the middle of the Love to Ride Challenge with Fdot statewide. And so if you're riding or you encourage people to ride, you can join that. And on Friday, we had our Bike Walk Tampa Bay Annual Summit, and we had a pretty good attendance, but we will also be sending out a recording of the summit to everyone so they can view it at their leisure.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you, Brenton.
Okay.
Got some good participation there.
Anyway, this is totally off topic, but if anybody's interested in the history of bicycling and race, I've got a great reference that I'm going to download to Wade Reynolds on cycling and Jim Crow at the turn of the last century. So just be on the lookout for that.
Okay, thank you, James. Thank you, Jim. It says James under your name there. Threw me off.
Oh yeah, either one.
Okay. All right, but yeah, I'd definitely be interested in checking that out. Does anyone else have any items? All right. Well, hearing none, we can go ahead and move on to the approval of minutes next. So does anyone have any objections or requests for changes to the approval of minutes?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right.
Can you see me? Sally Thompson?
Yep. Go ahead,
Hello?
Sally, we hear you.
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Hear me? Okay, on the minutes, on the first page, approval of minutes, I'm listed as Sally Thompson. I'm Sally Thomas. I'm Sally Thompson.
Apologies for that oversight.
Did we get that?
Twice.
Apologize for
That's
that,
okay.
Sally. We will get it corrected.
I just thought maybe you were trying to change my name.
All right, thank you, Sally, for bringing that to our attention. Does anyone have any other items or comments in regards to the approval of minutes? Okay, hearing none, we can go ahead. Can we get a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes as printed with the revision for Sally Thompson to from Sally Thomas.
Second.
We got a second. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed?
I thought, I'm not opposed, but I thought we couldn't approve minutes if there wasn't a in-person quorum. That's the whole point of having an in-person quorum.
Oh, yes,
It-
correct.
it-
Wade,
it
could you
will be
clarify,
an
please?
It will be an informal vote if we vote on them, as anything will be without an in-person quorum. But if we want to just ask for any objections, maybe that would be an easier way to do it.
Okay, I think as chair of the meeting, I'd still like to allow the opportunity to pass motions just as a way to gain consensus and provide recommendations, even if they are in an informal manner. But Wade, if you're good with
No,
that, then
I think that
nod
is
your head.
perfectly, absolutely understood. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, well then, hearing none in opposition, then the informal motion passes. And we can go ahead and move on to item number 4, our action items. And Wade is gonna take it from here. So up first, we've got the Memorandum of Agreement for bike ped counters with Fdot. Wade, you have the
Thank you,
floor.
Mr. Horst. Yes, sir. This is the first part of a two-part item, which we'll have a status report coming up on in a few minutes. But this memorandum of agreement is between the TPO and Fdot central office for the use of their counters. It's a mix of tube-type counters like you would see on a roadway for counting vehicles. We can put those at certain locations like the cycle tracks, for example, where you would have bicyclists. Additionally, there are infrared counters that use infrared video and processing technology to post-process that data and count pedestrians as well as cyclists and any other users that might be out there. The agreement is basically setting up what the responsibilities are. And our main responsibility with this is to go to the training, the staff, me and some other folks who will be setting these up, to go to the training provided by Fdot in the first week of February, and then go set these up, secure them. They come with chains to secure them to a pole or whatever we might be using. And then conduct these counts over the next 2 to 3 weeks. The goal is to get a continuous 2-week long count. So we have talked to Fdot and we're comfortable with the agreement. It is attached to your agenda. And we are hoping you will agree to move this forward to the TPO board for approval. This will be the first automated set of counts that we've conducted as a large grouping. There have been a couple, which I'll get into later in the meeting, but it's a real great opportunity and it'll be interesting to see how we can do with this pilot project. So thank you.
Okay, do we have any comments, questions for Wade regarding this memo?
This is Jim Shirk. Wade answered the one question I had, which is whether or not this is going to be a once in a lifetime or if it's going to be repeated periodically.
And we are planning to, with DOT's help, repeat this annually and expand, hopefully.
Great. Thank you.
I had a comment. Richard Rank, Hillsborough County Community and Infrastructure Planning. I know back when Monica Martin was the trails planner and she had been working with the DOT on this program and I don't think it got as far as a memorandum of understanding. Chalk that up to bureaucracy, I suppose, but there had been some discussions about possible locations that had been worked out mostly on the trails to get a better understanding of usage of the Upper Tampa Bay Trail, of course, and a few other locations. So I'd like to say that, this is great that this is going to be an annual program, opportunity to really get an assessment of bike usage on our system. So I would like to propose that I can coordinate with you or Wade about that correspondence that was made a while back. Try to locate that map and the locations that were talked about for data collection. I think it was back when the DOT was going to come on down and do it themselves. But if we're doing it, all the better. But if I could coordinate with you about what those locations are, if we can get one or two of them this year, but certainly, as the years progress, really try to get coverage at all of our trails and other side paths to get a comprehensive understanding of trail or bike usage.
Thank you, Rich. And I'm going to get into the map about the proposed downtown locations, but that map does show the proposed locations, I believe, that had been suggested by you and Monica before. So hopefully those are covered in what we have, but we'll see in a little bit here.
Gotcha. All right. Didn't mean to jump the gun, but thank you.
Not at all. Thanks.
Wade, I got a question for you. Is this a proposal to maintain a database of pedestrian counts similar like they do with traffic?
That database does exist in coordination with the map, and we are planning to do it all through DOT's central database statewide on this. So it'll all be, actually, I'll just go ahead and show the map. That'll probably make it a little easier. This is the statewide map that shows all of the count stations where they have been conducted. Are you all able to see that?
Yeah.
Great. And then there are a couple of layers, both proposed stations, which are a much larger number of blue dots here. I think you'll see those ones on the Upper Tampa Bay Trail. And then there's a large cluster in downtown, which I'll save for a moment later. And then these green dots, I'll turn some of the other ones off. The green dots are ones that have been further evaluated by central office, I believe, although counts have not been conducted. So I think those are some of the ones that are certain to be used in February. And then we're working with the downtown partnership on the other locations. And all of that data will be available moving forward in one centralized database that fortunately we don't have to create from scratch.
That would be nice. Okay, I gotcha. So mostly it's a priority to create a database of counts on the multimodal, like the shared use path network.
And to allow us to provide staff resources to set up those counters and take responsibility for the safety of those counters. Although we've had some conversations back and forth and are comfortable with the limited risk that entails.
Okay, that sounds good. Do we have a unofficial motion to approve, or does anyone like to propose any amendments, comments, changes?
This is Jim Shirk. I move to unofficially approve.
I unofficially second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, hearing none, we can count the unofficial approval a success. And Wade, you can take us to the next agenda item.
Thank you. These are comments on a couple of resurfacing projects that also are associated with urban corridor improvements. One is in Plant City and the other is Southdale Mabry. So I will go to those boards and we can kick it off. The Dale Mabry Highway segment goes from just south of the of Gandy, but the Selman Expressway and the new extension there as well, to Sevilla Street on the north, which is just north of El Prado. So it encompasses about a 40 and 45 mile an hour stretch, and Fdot has been going through the process of collecting input on these, and it's held a series of meetings, roadway safety audits to both on-site and virtually to look at possible improvements there. So zooming out a little bit, I can get to the overall, there we go. Sorry, it's hard to navigate this a little bit, but they have a number of comments and wanted to start running just these by the committee quickly. There are a number of comments about enlarging pedestrian islands and reducing the radii of those turns. That is a heavy freight corridor, but those are being evaluated for possibilities. I can even see that a couple of our folks have put comments in here. Extending the southbound turn lane, deceleration and storage, that is coming into the Selman Expressway entrance, the new one, I believe. And then as we move up, there have been a couple of pedestrian crashes at the entrance here to Fair Oaks, I believe, which was noted as a possibility for a mid-block crossing, or potentially an additional full signal. And then coming up, this is a Lowe's here on the south side, and a number of condo and commercial buildings on the north. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll down to the comments here. So they are evaluating a signal or evaluating timing for all of those three signals. There is a noted congestion area there. And that is a new signal as noted. There are bus pullouts at Britton Plaza that are also noted, and making sure that those are operating as needed with the traffic situation was also part of that. So with that being said, this corridor, I know that there are people in the committee who may have may live or do business or drive through here. So if there are any additional comments, or if anyone wants to send comments to me to pass along to Fdot, those are certainly accepted. And that will conclude my presentation on this resurfacing study. But I just want to do a quick overview of the Plant City Park Road study, which goes from I-4 on the north, which is to the right here, and Park Road, and US 92 to the south, excuse me. So there are some noted striping issues in this location where you cross the railroad tracks and have this signal. There were a number of comments about lighting, about some of the pavements on the leg here at the entrance to this subdivision, and questions about the number of lanes needed. For both of these studies, I should mention that these ideas have been grouped at the bottom of these in several sections. So to be discussed, something that's short-term separate from the roadway repavement project, something that could be in the repavement project, and something that would be longer term or separate. So a lane elimination in this area as it transitions to I-4 was either a longer term and separate from the repaving, and then a wider, basically a double-sized sidewalk, a side path throughout was not recommended at this location. But there are several things that are recommended within this. Relocating the crosswalks at I-4 on the north end, filling in sidewalk gaps at the interchange as well, and then some other, these are signalization section heads, and improving intersections and lighting. So that's just an overview of this. If anyone has any comments or wants to provide further input, they can certainly email me at their convenience, but within the next couple of weeks to make sure any comments are documented. Thanks.
Okay, great. So there was 3 locations. Is that correct, Wade?
There is another one that has not made it to this level yet to have the documentation available. The third location is Highway 60 in Brandon, just west of Lithia Pinecrest Road.
Okay.
But that we'll be bringing that back to you.
Okay. So right now we're just looking for comments for these two locations.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Okay. Okay. I can go ahead and open it up to comments for Wade, and we can start our discussion.
Okay. This is Jim Shirk. I have a question regarding Park Boulevard. Is that connected to the Plant City campus of HCC by any chance?
Yes, sir. The Plant City campus of HCC is right here. So it absolutely runs right in front of the HCC campus.
Okay. What in the striping is provided for bicycle facilities? Question mark.
There are currently no bicycle facilities on this section. It is a 6-lane divided section. And I do not believe they are proposed.
Okay, because back in the before times, some of the organized rides in Hillsborough County, the Plant City ride, used to be organized at the HCC campus, and you'd have 2,000 or 3,000 bicyclists riding up Park. And so I guess that's out of the question now.
I don't know that it's out of the question, but at this time, would that be before it was widened to 6 lanes?
Yes, it was back when it was 4 lanes.
Okay. I think any dedicated facilities would have to be part of the lane elimination, which was, I think, long-term and separate from the roadway repaving project, or at least in this. But your comment to you are certainly willing to comment on whether you believe bicycle facilities should be included with that project.
Well, I'm just looking at HCC, and some people are going to want to ride their bike to campus, and right now it looks like a losing proposition. I mean, not every student has a car, right?
Certainly.
Hi, this is Robin Baker. I'm with the City of Plant City. I just wanted to answer to that comment. I mean, we do have a bike ped plan that was conducted by the TPO, I believe in 2017. And this portion of Park Road was planned as part of that bike ped plan to include bike lanes. Obviously, we're working with the DOT in the preparation for this project. I believe the city is against any type of lane dieting on this particular road because, you know, development in this area and in direct vicinity of this portion of Park Road, we expect over the next 5 years to see more than 6,000 homes and around 5 million square feet of non-residential development in this immediate vicinity. So we're hoping for no lane diets, but maybe some other alternatives along this portion of Park Road, maybe a trail on one side instead of sidewalks and bike lanes, something that might accommodate both, but still allow us to keep the 6 lanes in this portion of the roadway.
Jim Shirk again. Did Wade not say that the idea of a side path had been eliminated?
I would say, I'm sorry if that's the impression I gave. It is not eliminated. It is not recommended in this study, but those comments from Plant City staff are welcome, and we will document those and pass them along to FDOT.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a request, Wade. If you want us to provide comments to you regarding these resurfacing projects, could you send them to us so that we have some independent time aside from here to review them and then can provide our comments back to you?
Yes, absolutely. And the links, I apologize, but the links in the agenda on this item should work to take you to these individual boards. If they do not for some reason, please let me know, and I'll get you another way to look at it.
Gotcha. Okay, I see it here. I got it down at the bottom. Okay, so when do these comments need to be back to you by?
Any comments you could get over the next couple of weeks would be appreciated, although I think these periods extend further than that.
Okay. All right, well, I think that sounds good. Do we have any motions, comments, further discussion regarding these 2 items?
And Mr. Horst, if you are accepting motions, I would just say to forward the comments that have been made to the board and to FDOT.
Okay. All right, can we get a motion to advance that as Wade described?
I so move. Jim Shirk.
Second?
Seconded, Peter Davitt.
All right, and all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, hearing none, the unofficial motion passes. Thank you, Wade, very much. We will look to review those some more and pass our comments over to you via email. All right, next item, keep going, Wade, doing great.
All right, and I know Mr. Shirk will be interested in this item because he said he might have a conflict. The BPAC, we are currently, of course, in the middle of the month, but the proposed calendar does have us a week later in the month, at least a week later every month. So the one that I really noted that I just wanted to bring to your attention is December 21st. You know, that's getting towards Christmas. That might be early for some folks, but it is the same day as the Livable Roadways Committee. As for the other ones, I know spring break is always troublesome for people. March 23rd, I don't know if that gives anyone pause, but just putting it out there for your consideration. These are the proposed dates for 2022.
This is Jim Shirk. I really appreciate that.
It was just for you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any objections or conflicts that they would like to address? All right, I guess hearing none, if someone would like to propose, I would go ahead and support the approval of the schedule of monthly meetings as is.
This is Jim Shirk. I so move.
All right, thank you,
Robin
Jim.
Baker,
Do we
second.
have a second? Okay, all in favor to approve the schedule of monthly meetings as is? Or
Aye.
Jim's say aye.
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 All right. All opposed? Okay, hearing none, the unofficial motion passes. And now we can move on to the next item in our meeting, the status reports. So up first, we've got FDOT 56th Street / 50th Street Corridor Planning Study by Sigal Carmente. Sorry if
Carminati.
I didn't get that quite right. Carminati.
That's
Oh,
all right.
okay, wonderful. All right, for joining us, and you have the floor.
Sigal, am I making Brian Shore the?
I'll go
Oh,
ahead and
Sigal.
present.
Okay, great.
So I will share my screen. Am I already a presenter? Okay, I see now.
Yeah, I just wanted to come on and introduce. I'm Brian Shore with the FDOT Planning Office. Just sort of introducing this study that we're doing on 50th, 56th Street. Its limits that we're looking at are from the Crosstown Expressway in the south all the way to Fletcher Avenue in the north. A big multimodal study that we're looking at through here, sort of kicked off by a Vision Zero plan that was looked at because of the high crash rates and everything on this corridor. So we've done so much so far throughout this year that here presenting what we have, get some feedback on some future stuff that we're going to do, public meeting that's coming up in December and stuff like that. So let Sigal run through what she has to show, and then I'll just be available here for comments after if you have any for me. All right, Sigal.
Sure, sounds great. I'm just having some issues sharing my screen here. Just one moment.
We can see it now. And you're in
Okay.
presentation mode now.
Great. Just trying to get to my speaker notes here. But if that doesn't work, let me see. Okay. Can you all still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee members. And thank you, Brian. My name is Sigal. I'm a consultant with Kittleson and Associates. And I am going to be talking about a few different items here. I'll be sharing information about the characteristics of the corridor and talking through the study schedule and process. I'll present on the issues that we're seeing on the corridor today and some opportunities of what to explore through this study. I'll also be talking through the draft purpose statement and needs that stem from our existing conditions work. And I'll wrap up with next steps for the study and finally open it up to questions. Okay, so this study was brought about because the Hillsborough TPO identified corridors as high crash corridors in the Vision Zero action plan. And this specific corridor has segments that ranked 9 and 15 for most severe in terms of crashes. The main impetus behind this study is to improve the safety for all users of the street because we're seeing a lot of walking, biking activity, a lot of freight traffic, people driving along the corridor, and a lot of transit activity as well. There's also a vision to connect the communities of the corridor across the 3 jurisdictions that the corridor spans, which includes the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, and Temple Terrace. So through the study, we're hoping to weave together the unique existing conditions of the corridor in terms of the land use contexts that are out there right now, but also what the future place types will be. So like Brian mentioned, the corridor is from Selman Expressway to the south to Fletcher Avenue in the north. It's about 8.5 miles long, predominantly 4-lane cross section. It's 6 lanes in the southernmost extent in the city of Tampa. There are on-street bike lanes throughout most of the corridor, except for in Temple Terrace, where the on-street bicycle lanes transition to sharrows. And there are sidewalks along the entire corridor. Although while we were out there doing a field review, we did see some drainage and some other maintenance issues that are opportunities for the study to explore in improving through some alternatives. And I'll talk more about that in next slides here. The corridor also carries a lot of transit, with Route 6 of Hart System specifically running along it and having some of the highest ridership in Hart System. And the Net Park Transfer Center is also located near the corridor, which is a major hub for transit routes and for multimodal activity. So we've done work to define the problems that we are seeing out in the corridor now through our existing conditions. And we've synthesized that information to share the issues and opportunities with you all today. The culmination of that existing conditions work has resulted in a draft purpose statement and needs, which I will share shortly. And we plan to take the draft purpose statement and needs to the public in a public meeting that we're having in December to get and integrate feedback from the public. And the final major milestone step for the study is to develop concept alternatives for which we'll be meeting with our project advisory group, or PAG, to go through those alternatives, select a preferred one, and develop some strategies for Fdot and the local partners to advance. So the project advisory group is made up of contacts from the different agencies and organizations that are shown on the screen. And their role is really to help guide the study process and provide some valuable feedback throughout the major milestones. In addition to the PAC, we've also reached out to businesses, organizations, and neighborhood groups along the corridor, shown here on the screen. And we're open to hearing from others, from anyone on this call, if they think there is another group that we should be reaching out to get input as the project continues. Moving along to the issues and opportunities here, we're seeing a lot of multimodal safety needs throughout the corridor. So there's a high number of bicycle and pedestrian crashes throughout the entire corridor, with over 50 bicycle and 50 pedestrian involved crashes from the 2016 to 2020 time period. There's a lot of activity beyond just bicycle and pedestrian, as people are also driving along and across the corridor, and we see a lot of that freight traffic related to industrial uses that are concentrated in the south, but also just seen throughout the corridor as well. The corridor saw 11 crash fatalities in that period, which is what flagged it as part of the Hillsborough TPO's Vision Zero work. And even though the corridor has been upgraded mostly to LED lighting, there are still some dark spots that we would like to address through this study. Like I already mentioned, but we just want to underscore how much transit activity there is on the corridor. It's seeing some of Hart its highest ridership routes, like Route 6. And overall, throughout the majority of the corridor, we're seeing high frequency. So buses running every 15 minutes or less. And of course, Net Park, which is on the figure seen as the largest circle there, sees a lot of routes converging there and a lot of people accessing and departing that location. And the bubbles that are shown here in this figure are just showing transit activity. So the number of people getting on and off buses, and the bigger the bubbles here, the more of that activity that there is. So we're seeing it those bubbles larger throughout the transfer center, but also in the northern extent of the corridor. So the data from our field observations, what we're just kind of seeing is that there isn't a huge issue with vehicle congestion between segments of the study corridor. Most of these segments are operating at LOS D, that's level of service D or better, which is meeting the Fdot target. And so when there is congestion, what we're really seeing is that it's associated with some downstream intersections operating at LOS E or worse. So some of that traffic that's going across the study corridor is contributing to some congestion, but we're really seeing that vehicular operations are more or less doing pretty well. There are also some places in the study area that are planning for future densification and land use changes like Temple Terrace. So right now, what I'm showing on the screen is the vision map for Temple Terrace, which highlights the CRA area in which they hope to create a more bicycle and pedestrian friendly environment. The vision for Temple Terrace also identifies the study corridor as a multimodal transportation corridor, aiming to create land use development that attracts people to walk, bike, ride transit, and drive along this area. And that vision is aligned with the context classification for the corridor along here, which is C4 urban general. There are industrial land uses along the corridor now, specifically in the city of Tampa to a southern extent, and a lot of that industrial land use is there to stay. So the corridor will definitely have to develop finding the right balance to continue serving freight traffic, other vehicular traffic, transit, and active transportation. Speed is a big problem on the corridor. In the figure that we're seeing on the screen here, those yellow lines represent posted speeds of 35 miles per hour. The red lines are 45, and then the dark red, sort of burgundy color is 55 miles per hour, and we can see that around MLK Boulevard and in a northern extent in Temple Terrace. What we're seeing through the data is that higher posted speed doesn't equate to better operations. So, for example, we have a segment from River Hills Drive to Whitney Drive that is 35 miles per hour and LOSD, versus we have a higher posted speed in another segment from Whiteway Drive to Fowler Avenue, which is 45, and it's LOSF. So just to kind of underscore that higher posted speed doesn't mean that the operation is actually going to be better along here, and it's and that's what we're seeing through the data too. And with a lot of high bicycle and pedestrian activity, no real vehicular congestion issues for the most part throughout the corridor. And with the potential redevelopment that I just discussed, there's really an opportunity to rethink the posted speed throughout the corridor to something that's really going to work for all the roadway users that we're seeing out here. And finally, in the last issues and opportunities slide here, just want to emphasize that this is a really diverse corridor. So about 2/3 of folks that we are seeing out here identify as Black or Hispanic. And we are also seeing a lot of young people residing on the corridor. We have a lot of schools, including King High School, USF, Florida Technical College, along the study area. And we know that young people and other vulnerable populations are negotiating some of those crossing movements with cars. They're going pretty fast, also with freight along the entire corridor. Most households in the study area have an income, household income less than the county median of $53,000. And some folks are actually living in extreme poverty, making less than $17,000 in annual household income. So as the corridor evolves, it really needs to reflect the transportation needs of all of these different users that we have along the corridor. Moving along to the purpose and need, we took all of this existing conditions information into account and developed this draft purpose to help guide the development of concepts. So the purpose is to eliminate fatal and severe injury crashes and prioritize accessibility of multimodal options through design and operational strategies that support existing and future places, which is a mouthful, but we wanted to touch on a few different points here. The purpose statement puts Vision Zero first and safety in the forefront here. It prioritizes mobility choices for people to get around, achieving that through specific design strategies that focus on physical roadway changes and also focus on what could be done to the signals in terms of operational strategies. And we also wanted to consider the land use context that exists on the corridor today, but take into account how the corridor is already changing and will change. To support this purpose statement, we have drafted several needs. These include increasing the frequency and safety of crossing opportunities for bikes and peds, designing and operating the street consistent with surrounding land uses to support existing and future place types, improving transit access and service efficiency, balancing freight and vehicle mobility with the needs of vulnerable users at conflict points, especially as we continue to have freight out here into the future. Supporting safe local resident and business access needs, providing better multimodal access for communities of concern, especially for those low-income households with 0 or 1 vehicle that we have along the corridor, and improving bike ped safety and comfort along the corridor as well. To wrap up here with next steps, we are planning to take all of this information to the public in a public meeting that will be held December 14th in person in Temple Terrace. And there's also going to be a virtual component to that meeting via GoToWebinar. So as these slides become available to everyone on today's call, you can scan the QR code to register for that meeting. And I will talk a little bit about some of how we're going to wrap up discussions with the project advisory group. We've already met for the kickoff and to discuss the issues and opportunities in the corridor, and we'll be meeting with them again in April to review the concept alternatives that are developed, and again in August of 2022 to present a preferred alternative and some strategies for next steps and actually implementing the plan. And with that, here is Brian's contact information to reach out with any questions or comments after today's presentation, and we can take some questions.
All right, thank you very much, Sigal. That was an excellent presentation, and definitely it looks like a corridor that needs some attention there. So with that, we can go ahead and open it up to comments and questions.
Hello, Peter Davitt from Temple Terrace. Tim, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
How are we doing?
Go ahead.
Good. So I'm looking at slide 14. I'm a little, I live in Temple Terrace. I've ridden my bike on 50th and 56th Street. I didn't quite understand what Segal said about opportunities for speed reduction. Is that something we're looking at? It looks like what is the rule? And I don't do this for a living, but the rule is supposed to be like 85th percentile is how we set our speed limits. But clearly those 85th percentiles are way wrong based on what's currently set there. Maybe we need more speed enforcement because it's way above the 50% people seem to be doing the speed limit. So are we looking to lower the speed limit, raise the speed limit, keep it the same? What's the thought process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Brian, do you want to kick that one off?
Yeah, so part of the study is taking this information and looking at it. They are driving fast. Changing speed limit signs isn't really going to fix the issue. Enforcement's being done. The chief of Temple Terrace is part of the project advisory group, so we've been talking with him. So out of this study, we'll take some look at speed management strategies that we can use. So that's in line with changing signs. We're looking at engineering and other ways to change driver behavior out there by sort of making them feel a little more uncomfortable with speeding by these different strategies. There's a whole list of them, like median changes, landscaping, just sight distance stuff that we work with the engineering side. So that's how we'll look at and addressing some of those issues there.
All right, so the understanding is that we're looking to lower the speed limit or to get people more in compliance, or both?
Looking to get the speed limit in line with the context of what's out there. So we're going to set a target speed of what should be out there now and try to do these engineering changes to get the speed to get lowered to that target speed. And it may not happen with one thing. It may be over several projects of getting that speed down. It's not necessarily that we're looking everywhere to get it down, but we're looking to get it right.
I understand that. Thank you for your answering my question.
All right, anybody else have questions for our presenters? All right. Hearing none.
If anything else comes up, December 14th in Temple Terrace, we'll be holding the public meeting, so you can connect there again. Like I said, online, you can come into the building where we'll be at too, and we'll have all these displays and have some more discussions with different people in the group. So look forward to hearing from you.
All right, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Segal.
Thank you.
I think that's a excellent, looks like you guys did an excellent job there of analyzing that corridor and really trying to get the speeds just right and focusing on those fatal and incapacitating crashes and getting those down. So I think that's, yeah, you guys are on the right track there. So I guess with that, we can go ahead and do a motion to approve.
And we don't actually need one on this. It is just a status report. So, but thank you.
Yep. All right. Correct. Thank you, Wade. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And we can go ahead and move to our next status report. This will be from Stephen Benson with the City of Tampa on the City of Tampa Neighborhood Commercial District Plans. All right, Stephen, take it away.
Stephen, I just made you the presenter if you can see it.
Okay, great. Let me pull this up. Can y'all see my screen yet, or?
It may be the wrong screen. We're seeing what seems like a calendar, a black and white calendar screen. At least on mine, there is a show screen button with a pull down bar below it under the sharing bar.
Okay. There we go. Can you see it now? Great.
There it
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry about that. Well, thank you all very much for having me today to give you an update on the Neighborhood Commercial District program with the City of Tampa. The program originated through a motion by City Council to take a closer look at some of the many neighborhood commercial districts that exist throughout the city, and partner with the Planning Commission to do some studies for those areas. And we began that. The motion was made in September of 2019. So we spent the good part of 2020 going through this process and selecting 2 corridors to take a closer look at. And before I get into the details of it, what is a neighborhood commercial district? What does it mean? There are a lot of different definitions, different examples, but basically it is the sort of the quintessential picture that pops up in your head when you close your eyes and think about what a main street is. So it's an area that people come to and they congregate in, and where economic activity takes place. And what makes it neighborhood focused is that the businesses and the services that exist are really focused on serving not just visitors and folks from around the area, but also the folks that live nearby or live in the district itself. So the 2 districts that we selected to study last year were the Palmacia area, specifically the segment of Beta Bay, roughly from Himes to the Selman, and the segment of McDill from the Selman up to San Miguel. There are, selecting the study areas was an art and a science because, of course, if you're familiar with these areas, there is commercial development outside of the study area. So further south on McDill, further north on McDill, further west on Beta Bay, we acknowledge that. And so we had to really draw the line somewhere just to be able to go through the process and not, bite off more than we could chew. So this was the first one was Palmacia, and the second one was focused on Main Street in West Tampa. So roughly from North Boulevard to the Howard Armenia one-way pairs, and then along Howard Avenue itself from Interstate 275 up about a half of a mile north, just south of Columbus Drive. So those are the 2 areas that we focused on. And the process that we went through was a team-oriented process, working with all of our different agencies that have a stake in the corridor. And we did conduct both of these studies in-house using our own staff resources and also resources that were contributed from the Planning Commission and from the MPO, the TPO, and from some of our other partners, the school district as well. And we held community meetings. We had some focus groups, sent out some surveys to the surrounding neighborhood associations, had some social media activity and poll questions that we put out. We also engaged the University of South Florida and it was actually the Florida Center for Community Design and Research. Terrace brought her students and her graduate students to come and kind of give their take on what they would do to improve these areas. And then we did take a look at some high-level economic data just to get a sense of what the trends are in the market to deliver the type of development that's currently planned for and zoned for in this area. So with that information, we took that and developed some key themes, which we called community issues and opportunities. We also created a vision statement that really represented the direction that each of these communities want to go in the future. And then we did a deeper dive. This is just an example of some of the deeper dives that we took, and handpicking depending upon what the issues were. If there was a really close focus on the roadway, for instance, or mobility, we took a deeper dive into that. Or if we heard a lot of comments about placemaking, we took a deeper dive into that. So that led us to develop strategies, and I'm going to present to you now what the results of both of these studies were, as well as what is on the horizon moving forward after these. So as I said, these were our partners, and these are just a list of some of the folks in the neighborhoods, specifically for Palmacia, that worked with us to develop both of these plans. Looking at the existing conditions and what the data was really telling us, the two major data sets we looked at were population and employment, as well as economic activity and development trends. So permitting activity, looking at what types of projects are being rezoned for and built and permitted. And then we also, as I said, did a lot of community engagement. We had almost 200 hits on the neighborhood survey, about 50 hits on the more detailed follow-up survey, and then did a walking audit. This is a picture that we went on, one of the walking audits that we went on. You can see here how the stroller can, really barely navigate the sidewalk on the north side of Beta Bay. And this is just kind of one example of, all the different ways and perspectives that we tried to employ to really develop a solid understanding of what's going on and what could happen in the future. Just an example of some of the issues and opportunities. I pulled these out of the report because I thought these would be of particular interest to this group. About half of all, this is one of the things that we discovered several years ago. Some of you might recall the proposal to do a road diet on Beta Bay that was led by the city of Tampa's, at the time, transportation department. And ultimately that did not move forward, but there were quite a few safety enhancements that were incorporated into that repaving project that was done, that was led by Hillsborough County around that time. And so one of those enhancements was a speed feedback sign that obviously collects data and projects out the speed of motorists back to them. But what we were able to do is harvest from the speed feedback signs the speed information of every vehicle that passes by. So we essentially were able to just mine that data and tabulate it to create a little speed study. And what we discovered was that about half of all drivers on Beta Bay are exceeding the speed limit. And this kind of underscores the comment from the prior presentation about, well, can you just reduce the speed limit? And the answer is obviously, if you look here, if over half the people are already going above the speed limit, reducing it any further, isn't necessarily going to make a difference. So we really focused the community survey on what is the greatest need for the street? How can we build more consensus around what the biggest deficiencies are and the biggest opportunities are in order to move forward with something that addresses this the speed and the safety issue out there. And some of the highest responses were, of course, wider sidewalks, enhanced crosswalks, figuring out how to incorporate on-street parking, which is, of course, when you think of a main street, it's hard to picture any main street, any great main street that doesn't have some type of on-street parking. And then also bike lanes or bike routes, just to be able to provide a continuity for folks to be able to access Bayshore from the west, because Beta Bay is really the only connector that goes under the Selman that feeds the Palmacia and Virginia Park neighborhoods into Bayshore. So looking at the vision statement, this was the vision statement for Palmacia that was developed. Some of the key themes were, of course, economic prosperity, but this vision to be more accessible and more connected to the rest of the city. Wanting to be beautiful and welcoming, so that visual appeal was important to the neighborhood. Safety and walkability, of course, and then just reinforcing that concept of a traditional main street and figuring out how to how to help the area evolve into that vision in that direction. Here's an example of some of the work that the USF graduate students helped us with, taking a look at some different cross sections and developing their own perspective on what they felt like should be done along the corridor. You can see this one is an example of a road diet configuration, taking the existing road, which is 2 lanes in each direction, and reducing it to 1 lane in each direction with a left-hand turn lane, as well as it looks like they were able to fit in some bicycle lanes and much wider sidewalks and more substantial pedestrian realm. But this is one of about 10 different student projects focused on developing distinct visions for the corridor. This is, I don't expect you to be able to read this, but this gives you a sense of the 6 key themes. So the first one was to enhance the public realm. The second one was to reimagine the roadway. The third was to focus on more resilient and more organized infrastructure in the area. So when you go look at that slide with the stroller in it, the fact that that utility pole is right in the middle of the sidewalk really isn't a good condition. So how can we upgrade our infrastructure? The fourth key theme was public safety, both from a roadway standpoint, but also lighting and other needs. The fifth was urban parking, so developing a clear framework for how parking should work in the area. One of the big things holding back development that we were able to garner from our interviews with some of the business owners in the area is that the on-site requirements for parking are really difficult to meet for redevelopment, because all of those commercial properties that are along Bay to Bay, the size of those lots are very small, and so it's really hard to fit all the surface parking that's required. So that's why you're not seeing as much redevelopment activity on Bay to Bay itself as you might see in other parts of the city, even though it is a very economically vibrant area. And then that sixth and final focus area was to look at land use and design standards. And these are all of the individual recommendations that were made, as well as the timeframes and the relative cost and just the next steps. So if you kind of zoom in, you can see here for under enhance the public realm, these were some of the recommendations to look at installing gateway features to really instill a sense of arrival, that you're actually arriving in a place and not just blowing through a neighborhood. Focusing on activating the Selman underpass, acquiring and repurposing the CSX corridor, looking at a pilot project for the Bay to Bay corridor itself, taking a look at some of the great examples of tactical urbanism that has been done around the community, and how we can incorporate that to activate some of the places that have really kind of been forgotten along the corridor. And then a more longer term, but certainly a great need, is taking what comes out of this pilot project and really formalizing it with an actual transformation, a more significant and substantial capital project to bring the road up to modern standards and to be more of a complete street. And then this is just visual examples of what some of those recommendations were. Looking at parallel bicycle boulevards on Empedrado and Santiago streets, which are the east-west streets parallel to Bay to Bay, to the north and to the south, to really emphasize connecting the neighborhoods to the west towards Bayshore to the east. Looking at the CSX corridor and really taking a step back and reimagining what it could be in the future. These are some images of the communities along the Pinellas Trail in Pinellas County. And the Pinellas Trail is, of course, one of Florida's premier rail to trails. It took them quite a long time to develop it and build it out, but I think that for any of you that have been to Dunedin or any of the areas over there, Tarpon Springs, you know what a transformative catalyst project that Pinellas Trail has been into transforming those areas. Just some images of the Ashley Drive pilot project that the city did. And really trying to take this as an example to inspire a similar type of pilot project on Bay to Bay. And then, of course, the Selman underpass was brought up numerous times by almost everybody right there at the corner of Bay to Bay and McDill. What can be done with that underpass area to activate it and turn it into more of a focal point and a place rather than just a parking lot, which is what it functions as now. Looking at land use and development, some of the, this is actually not Beta Bay, but this is an example I'm going to show you on Florida Avenue that we showed to the neighborhoods to be able to convey what better land use and design standards can achieve. This is, a building that's similar to, many of the buildings on Beta Bay. You can see there's, the sidewalk is really flush with the road. It's a 4-lane undivided road, just like Beta Bay. And there really is no clear sense that, behind this building is a neighborhood. And this is the district that should be serving that neighborhood. So over time, through code changes that were put in place by the city in the Seminole Heights area, you can see how through redevelopment, the streetscape is totally transformed and changed. Now the roadway is still there. You still have the 4-lane road, but the pedestrian facilities, you see, there's even like bicycle parking and a transit stop, and all of this can be done without the city necessarily having to go and do a project. This is all done incrementally with development as it comes online. So that was something that we also recommended too. Just transitioning real quick to give you a sense of the Main Street project and where that landed. There were about 60 recommendations that focused on 10 different community themes in the West Tampa area of Main Street, and about half of the recommendations are actually already underway. This is an example of what some of the USF students put together in terms of analyzing the urban design of the area and what deficiencies exist and what could be done to address that in the future. Some of the example recommendations were, very similar to Beta Bay, taking a look at the streetscape and how to allow the area over time to evolve into more of a Main Street physical appearance. Hosting an annual development forum. This was a recommendation from the CRA to actually implement the community redevelopment area. Looking at a parking plan for Main Street. Parking was one of the big complaints, specifically lack of parking or a perceived lack of parking. So the West Tampa CRA has already moved forward with putting together a scope for a parking plan and bringing a consultant on board to take a look at that more closely. And then just being more proactive about hosting festivals and events and bringing life and activity to the area, back to the area really, because of course it was much more active, in the past than it is today. If you'd like to take a look at these reports in more detail, the website is there, as well as recordings of all of the presentations that we gave. The benefit of this occurring during 2020 is that everything was virtual, and so all of our meetings and all of our presentations were recorded and posted online. So all that information is there if you'd like to take a look at it. And then really the status and some of the lessons learned. Both plans have obviously been completed and have been closed out. And what we've done now is taken all those recommendations and transmitted those recommendations to the implementing agencies or implementing departments if it's internal to the city. Moving forward, we would like to be able to target at least doing one additional neighborhood district plan per year. And I'm going to show you some of the corridors that we're looking at moving forward. The multi-agency planning team that we created really brought a huge amount of value, just all the expertise from all the different professionals that were involved. Not necessarily as much as a project necessarily if we had a huge budget to do this, but just having everybody at the table from all those different agencies brought a lot of value. As well as having USF at the table. That was a great beneficial partnership. Moving forward, we are going to be looking to try to add consulting services to provide some of that additional expertise that we don't necessarily have in-house, and also to reduce the amount of time it takes to do these studies. The CRA, specifically for West Tampa, because the Main Street West Tampa study area fell within a community redevelopment area, and so that really was sort of a built-in implementation mechanism, because the city has a CRA manager that is responsible for implementing the plan for the CRA focused on economic development and elimination of blight. So a lot of those recommendations he's taken, our CRA manager for West Tampa, he's taken and run with already. That's why it's already in motion. And then what we want to do moving forward also is to look for the common thread between all these different areas. What are the common things that we can do that might have citywide application, not just to one specific neighborhood, but a common theme that we're seeing throughout all of our commercial corridors. similar to those slides I showed you in Seminole Heights, just putting in some basic design standards that are in more than just one specific neighborhood can bring a lot of value. And so that's what we want to focus on with our future studies. So taking a look at the next study location, we did a GIS analysis looking at the different types of land use and zoning compositions clustered around corridors and districts in the city. And this is the layer that really popped out as being the roads that would be the greatest candidates for further study. So we broke those up by council district. And really in the name of equity, we really wanted to focus on the council districts that were not touched by the other two studies. So South Tampa has already been studied. The West Tampa was focused on the west part of the city. So the next study corridor is going to be focused on downtown East Tampa area. And so that's the one that we put together some recommendations for. So you see the three candidates that we recommended to leadership were to look at 22nd Street and Palmetto Beach, Nebraska Avenue, but the north end of Nebraska, so from Bush to Fowler, and then 15th. This image is not from that section now that I see it, but north and the university area section of Nebraska, and then 15th Street in VM Ybor, from I-4 to Lake Avenue. All of these have a great existing development pattern of commercial development, neighborhood scale commercial development, and they need a little help and a little love. And so hopefully we can move forward. The corridor that was selected for next year is 15th Street in the Ybor area. And there were a couple of reasons why we selected that. The existing mix of commercial and residential uses was really interesting. So if you've ever driven up and down all of 15th Street, you'll see that there's like little clusters of almost like corner stores. And then in between those clusters are just residential homes or apartments. And so, but really it functions as one sort of cohesive district. Let's see here. So moving forward, we received an award from the Department of Economic Opportunity in the amount of $50,000, which we're very thankful for, because now we'll be able to bring a consultant on board to lead this study for 15th Street. We expect it to actually kick off once we get the contracting finalized in early 2022 with about a 6-month duration. And then, we'll once this gets going, we'll be sure to send information about how to participate in the study to Wade so we can share it with you all. But that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to go into any more detail or answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephen, for that presentation. Do we have any comments for Mr. Benson?
What was the web link again? Can you hear me?
If you go, yes, if you go to tampa.gov/city planning, and there'll be a button there that one's for Palmacia, one for Main Street.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody else? Okay, Stephen, we appreciate you coming in here and giving us that presentation, filling us in on that. It sounds like some excellent work there. All right, and with that, we can go ahead and move on to our next status report. This is going to be Karen Kress with the Downtown Partnership, along with our very own Wade Reynolds, and they are going to be talking about Tampa Downtown Partnership bicycle and pedestrian counts.
And I am covering for Karen tonight, but this is the second part of what we discussed earlier with the memorandum of agreement with Fdot on this. So in the downtown area, there are several sites that have been proposed, and they're few enough where we can go through them. And I will also go through the other ones for Mr. Rank. But this is on the Riverwalk. That's part of getting a larger term count on the Riverwalk. This one is right at the corner of Ashley, where the Jackson Street cycle track starts, which would be a good way to gauge people at that far end of the cycle track. This star is not actually on it, but this is the cycle track continuous count station, which we can thank Mr. Benson for, I think. And then Kennedy has been proposed as a site. This would be immediately west of County Center, which is right here. I don't believe this facility has a bike lane, and I'm sure it doesn't, in fact. But there still is quite a bit of traffic in there, particularly during the day from delivery folks and I'm sure others. And that may be proposed on the sidewalk as a pedestrian count station as well, I should add. This further down the Jackson Street cycle track before it turns along Nebraska. And then looking north in downtown, we have the Cass Street cycle track. Another one that I was going to recommend to FDOT is the somewhere along the Nuccio Parkway segment of the Cass Street cycle track, and I do know that the Downtown Partnership has some wishes in that regard, but this Nuccio Parkway segment, at least up to I believe 7th, has just been completed. So that is a great extension into Ybor of that Green Spine project. In addition, we have North Boulevard in front of JB Lane Park. There had also been discussion sort of on the other side of the bridges into downtown to try and get a wider take on just where people are coming from into downtown. Just going to a wider view of all this, counts proposed on Bayshore. There is an existing count station that is to be repeated on the Courtney Campbell Causeway that was previously done by District 7 as a short-term count. Another one proposed at Rocky Point. And then one that the West Shore Alliance has proposed is right here between the Courtney Campbell Causeway Trail. The trail comes up and then comes up to Skyway Park. This is a very active area, and we're going to see if we can get a count station in there as well. As Mr. Rank mentioned earlier, there are a number of locations. There is one existing count station in Hillsborough on this park, and I'll zoom to this one real quick. Excuse me, I clicked on the wrong one. The actual count station. If you click on any of these, and this is a public resource, you can go to the data page that has all of the, well, of course, my agency access has expired on that, but let's see if any of the other things show up. So that was the site visit info that just downloaded. And it has the full visit form that talks about what they observed and what to observe in those locations, and even the pictures. And that would be just by Waters Avenue. So with that being said, there are several other sites, as Mr. Rank mentioned, proposed along this. DOT Central staff did mention that they are looking at least a couple of these for future, or I mean for counts this time and additional counts moving forward. And then you can see how those proposed counts, they just have everything on here that has been proposed throughout the area. And if I just turn off the proposed layer, I think you'll see that there are a lot of proposed sites and very few existing sites. The existing sites are just these ones in the red. So that is excuse me, the gist of it. And if there are any questions or if there are any additional sites that folks want to propose for longer term evaluation, please let us know. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Wade. As he said, if there's any comments or recommendations, please speak up now. All right, well, hearing none, Wade, it seems like everyone's pretty happy with the recommendations and this whole plan to monitor and track bike and pedestrian counts, so well done there. And with that, we can go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. This is going to be by Kerry Irons. He's going to be presenting on the US Bicycle Route 15 through Hillsborough County. Do we have him with us?
Yes.
And Kerry, shall I make you the presenter, or shall I present your presentation?
You might as well be the you can click through them. I'll just say next slide.
Yes, sir. One moment.
Standard academic technique. That's what grad students are for, right? Okay.
Is this the one?
Yep. Yeah, so I'm here today. I won't take very long, but I want to explain the concept of the U.S. Bicycle Route System and the proposal to put U.S. Bicycle Route 15 on Hillsborough County and Plant City roads. It is a national system under the control of the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, AASHTO. Next slide, please. So it's a growing national network. Almost 18,000 miles have been designated in 31 states, plus the District of Columbia. The routes are approved by state transportation agencies, and I'll talk a little bit about what already exists in Florida. And it's coordinated by the Adventure Cycling Association, and that's who I'm representing today. Next slide, please. So for those of you who don't know what the Adventure Cycling Association, we're a nonprofit. Our mission is to inspire, empower, and connect people to travel by bicycle. So we're a bicycle travel organization. We have our own 50,000 mile plus route network. We sell maps to that. We run organized tours. We have a magazine. We do national advocacy, which is part of which is the U.S. Bike Route System. We're over 50,000 members, and our route network provided a blueprint for the first U.S. bicycle routes. And we're the technical support organization to AASHTO. So we're partners with AASHTO and with the state DOTs on the U.S. Bike Route System. Next slide. So a little bit of history. The first routes were designated in 1982. Some of you may remember there was a bike boom in the United States in the 70s. And the DOTs got all excited about that about 3 or 4 years after the boom was over and put together the U.S. Bike Route System. Routes were designated in Virginia, Kentucky, Illinois, and North Carolina. U.S. Bike Route 76, East-West, and U.S. Bike Route 1 North-South. That went dormant, but in the early 2000s, the project was restarted. A task force was created. Adventure Cycling joined that task force. And and things take a long time when you're working with 50 DOTs. But then after 4 years of work, AASHTO approved a process for designating routes and a corridor plan. And once that got rolled out in 2011, the first new routes were designated since 1982. Next slide, please. This is the map. It's a little bit out of date, but of the U.S. Bike Route System. The dotted lines are corridors in which a U.S. bike route can be designated. The solid lines are where U.S. bike routes have already been designated. And if you look at Florida, you can see U.S. Bike Route 90 across the Panhandle between St. Augustine and Pensacola, U.S. Bike Route 1 down the Atlantic coast to Key West, and a little segment of U.S. Bike Route 15 that goes up into Georgia and comes into Florida. And we want to extend that from U.S. Bike Route 90 all the way down to Miami, add about 500 miles to it. So next slide, please. So the history there, in 2014, US Bike Route 1 and US Bike Route 90 were designated by the Florida DOT, all on state highways. And there are currently realignment projects on both of those to move them off state highways where appropriate onto quieter city streets and county roads. And several of those realignments have taken place and several more are underway. What we're talking about today is US Bike Route 15. So the north segment in Florida was designated in 2018. It's 14 miles long. There's an additional 60 plus miles in Georgia. And there's a proposal to extend it to Miami, as I said, which is 496 additional miles. Next slide, please. So in order for Fdot to request the designation as a US bike route, jurisdictional support is required. So whoever owns the pavement, whether it's a street, a road, a trail, whoever owns the pavement needs to tell Fdot that they're in support. There are 19 jurisdictions along the proposed US Bike Route 15 extension, and each of those jurisdictions will need to provide a resolution of support or a letter of support to Fdot saying, yeah, we're in support of that. And adventure cycling volunteers like me are doing local agency outreach. So that's what today is about, starting with the BPAC and then taking it to the county and to Plant City to get their approval as well. Next slide, please. So this is the route in Hillsborough County, and that link there is, you can go to that. It's a Ride with GPS link for those of you who are familiar with that. And you can zoom into any level of detail and look at it like a Google map. And if changes are made, that link will stay current. So any changes that get made along the route, that link will stay current. The link is for the entire state, but you can zoom in on any portion of it. So you can see it's in the east side of Hillsborough County, comes in on State Highway, goes through Plant City, then south and east from there. Next slide, please. So this is a list of the roads. Comes in on State Highway 39, and then uses that list of roads, county roads and city streets in Plant City, and then it picks up the Heritage Trail in Polk County. And as I said, any changes that Hillsborough County or Plant City want to make in the route, those can be made, and then the map link stays current. You can always look at it. Next slide, please. So local agencies have the final say. Fdot needs to hear from the local agency, the county and the city, that they're in support specifically of the following roads. So if a local city says we want it on Elm Street instead of Maple Street, then we make that change. If the connection to an adjacent jurisdiction changes, then we have to negotiate that with the adjacent jurisdiction to make sure they agree with it. And of course, when it's on a state highway, that's under Fdot jurisdiction. So it's only the city streets and county roads that are not Fdot highway that the locals get to define. Next slide, please. So designating a US bike route, this is a mapping project, it's not a construction project. There's no money available, question we often get, but there's no cost as well. And basically what this, when completed, will provide is somebody says, hey, I want to ride down the west coast of Florida. They can go to the Adventure Cycling website, they can go to the Fdot website, they can find a defined route down the west side of Florida for a multi-day, obviously 500 miles, it's going to be a multi-day trip. So perhaps a week, 2 weeks for bicycle tourism on the west coast of Florida. Obvious positive health and environmental impacts, low impact tourism, doesn't increase traffic, etc. And obviously in smaller communities, it can be a significant economic development opportunity. That restaurant, that motel, that gas station, that convenience store, that hardware store, that bike shop, if they see another couple thousand people a year, and that number is completely out of thin air, we don't have data on how many people might show up. But if that we know from other routes in the country that businesses have started and businesses have stayed in business because they're on a long distance bicycle route. Next slide, please. Okay, that's me, Kerry Irons. I'm the U.S. Bike Route Volunteer Coordinator for Adventure Cycling. I work on routes all across the country. Our U.S. Bike Route Coordinator is Jen Hamelman, there's our contact information and phone numbers. So what are we asking? We're asking for the BPAC to look at this route and perhaps make suggested changes and or say, no, it looks good. We support it. From there, we would take it to the TPO, and from there, with their approval, we would take it to the county and to Plant City to get their support documents to Fdot. So the BPAC doesn't own the roads, but we know that the county and Plant City will want to hear that the BPAC is in support of this. So if we could go back up to the list of roads, back up 3 or 4 slides, Wade. And we can toggle back and forth between this and the map. If you want, we can spend some time now. I know it's late, and maybe you would want to take some time to digest this. But yeah, there's the map. So if anybody has comments about that, either during this meeting or whatever the next step might be, I don't know. Obviously, from my perspective, it would be great if you guys said, yeah, this is perfect. We'll vote to support it right now. I'd be surprised if that happened, but comments.
Hi, Kerry. This is Jim Shirk. As a member of the ACA for many years, I'm about to surprise you because I really would like to take the lead on this, Wade.
Yeah, Jim, if you, so this is basically Hillsborough County and Plant City. Those are the two jurisdictions, and working across the state of Florida, what we found is if we can find a BPAC to give us a boost and a support, great. And then they take that to a TPO, an MPO, an RPC with various designations, and then that carries a fair bit of weight with the county and the city. But I would be more than happy to work with you and let you carry that freight.
Okay. I believe if it's okay with you, Wade, what I'd like to do is before the next meeting, I'd like to prepare a statement from the BPAC for internal review so we can vote on it next month, if that's good with you.
Absolutely, Jim, and I'd be happy to set up any meetings with Plant City or Hillsborough County staff prior to that, I think that would help prior to really taking a vote on anything.
Okay, great. Yeah, we have a very powerful representative from Plant City on our BPAC right now, and she was weighed in on the Park Road issue. I'd like to maybe get her involved in this, and obviously you at the TPO. So maybe we could set up an online meeting next week? Question mark.
Happy to set it up.
Okay, I'll.
Jim, if you can send me your contact information, that presentation had my email address, and then we can hook up. I'm happy to participate at any level that you want. I'm happy to step back completely and let you carry the ball. I'm happy to be there as a consultant and answer questions, whatever works.
Well, I'd like you to stay involved and just give my regards to Jim Sayer.
Jim has long since retired.
Yeah, I followed his bike trek back to Missoula from New England.
Yeah, he's retired. We're working on getting a new executive director.
Well, good luck. It's a great job. Anyway,
for folks that want to live in Missoula, Montana.
Okay. So Kerry, I'll use your link here and send you my contact data, and then Wade will organize a meeting next week electronically, and we'll move forward on getting something together for you.
Great. And to the rest of the members of the BPAC, you've also got my contact information. Any comments you have, send them to Jim, copy me. As I said, this the route is a proposal. And so the county and Plant City can change it in any way they feel appropriate. And I think they would lean heavily on the BPAC as a knowledgeable organization to say, hey, this should be changed, or this is right. That's however you guys want to carry that forward.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would appear that these segments have been ridden by local volunteers.
So just a quick history of a bench cycling member who has been a national contact for people who like to ride in Florida, has basically collected input from lots and lots of people who have tried to, in various ways, ride down the west side of the state. And she put together this draft route based on lots and lots of long distance travelers who've come through and said, hey, I tried what you suggested. Here's a better idea. And that's been going on for several years. That's where this route came from. But it didn't come down from the mountain on stone tablets. How's that?
Great. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and send you my contact data, and we'll get something going, and so we can report back to you, or report back to the BPAC.
Perfect. And just so everybody knows, the next deadline for a designation application would be early April. So if we could get, and I know people think, well, it's just early November. No, it's actually January from the way processes work, vacations, holiday season, et cetera. So there's not that much time to get this done by the spring. And obviously I'm working with all these other jurisdictions as well. So there is some time pressure, but every 6 months you can do this. So next fall is also an application opportunity. Great, thanks a lot for your time, everybody. Like I said, feel free to contact me by email or by phone if you've got other questions, but we'll look to Jim to be a focal point for this.
Hi, Wade.
Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Hi, this
Mr.
is Gail, the
Irons.
recorder. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yeah, we hear you.
Okay, so there's a question in the chat and also in the question section.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The question is in the chat from Mr. Davitt is, can we get the Ride with GPS link again, please? And absolutely, I will send that right now in the chat to everyone.
And if you see that title on the left and you're a Ride with GPS user, you can just search on that title and it'll come up as well. But you have to be explicit. Fairly explicit anyway. Well, again, thanks everybody for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
All right, that sounds good. We'll take a look at it more and try to get some recommendations or just comments to you.
Hey, Wade, you have one other question. It's in the questions section. It's from Mr. Dunnigan. It says, when you say there's no money, then what actually happens?
As I said, this is a mapping project. So when we get all the jurisdictions lined up, Fdot submits an application to the feds, and this becomes part of the U.S. bicycle route system with maps available for long distance travelers. There could be a signing project later on, completely separate, and obviously funds would have to be identified to do that. But basically, it puts this route on the national map. That's essentially what we're doing here. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that does. That clarifies it for me.
Can I ask a question? This is Sally Thompson. Do you think there would be money in the new infrastructure bill that's being signed?
I know that the TAP program or whatever next iteration will be increased. At one point, we had potential, and this was back in 2008, or 2009, we had the potential for getting a little bit of money set aside specifically to sign U.S. bicycle routes, but it didn't happen. I'm not aware that any specific funds are available. the DOT, the funds in the infrastructure plan and the reconciliation bill will flow through the DOT, and how they are able to piece that together. Obviously, that's a little above my pay grade.
Okay. Just a thought.
Possibly is the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
So I believe that concludes. Any more comments out there in the chat that we're missing? All right, I guess we are good to move on. So thank you very much, Carrie, and we will get back to you and look forward to staying in touch with you on that effort.
Yeah, and as I said, Wade, my job is to keep bugging you guys, so I won't disappear. Take care.
Okay, good.
You have a great
Yeah, sounds like
advocate.
a very
in the system.
worthwhile pursuit. Yes. Yeah, we look forward to seeing what Jim comes up with you, what he brings back to us. So, all right. So with that, we can go ahead and move on. We do not have any old business and new business. Is that right, Wade?
Unless there is anything from the committee, no, sir.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm not aware of any, and if you have something you'd like to bring up, please do. If not, we can go ahead and motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. Jim Shirk.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have
I
a second?
second.
John seconds. All right. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 All right. Any
Thank you all.
opposed? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that concludes our meeting.
Good job.
Great job.
Great
Tom.
job. Thanks,
Appreciate
Jeff.
it. Sure thing. Happy to do it.
Okay.
We'll see you next time.